Hello, everybody in podcast land and also on YouTube now. Now, we don't want to betray your trust.
No.
We don't. We value your trust. However, we recently made a poll on Twitter asking you what movie we should cover next episode. Ooh. That episode is this episode.
Yep.
And we didn't pick the winning movie.
I'm sorry.
Most of you voted for 7.
Is this not a democracy?
Yeah.
But we opted...
It was pretty close.
It was close.
It was okay.
It was surprising, and they were tied for a long time. There was a good couple.
They
hours
were.
there.
It looked like it was going to be Swiss Army Man, and then we were like, all right, we're going to do Swiss Army Man. But then 7 pulled ahead.
But we're not doing 7 anyway. We're here to talk about Swiss Army Man because we wanted to more.
And I mean, like, you want to hear us talking about stuff we want to talk about.
Right?
Right?
Okay.
That and like it's a movie that's not super box office successful in
Right.
the same way that 7 was.
It's nice to get a good spread, you know?
Yeah.
And for those of you not watching on YouTube, you might notice a different voice in the room. In the room today, there's myself, James, there's Riley, and because David is in Puerto Rico or Mexico.
Is he?
No, he's actually in Playa del Carmen.
Oh, that one.
Brandon's here instead. Brandon from LTT.
Hello.
Hey,
Thank
welcome.
you for having me.
Brandon, you're like I said this last time, you're like the resident movie expert.
Am
and
I?
I can say that without qualification now because David's not here. So he can't be insulted.
Fair enough.
Have you done a movie?
Have I done a movie?
That's what they call
Have
it.
I made a
You
movie?
mean, they say a feature in the business.
A feature?
Have you done a feature?
Have I made a feature? No, I've never made a feature. I've made shorts. Never made a feature.
Would you like to
How
one
about
day?
pants?
I would love to make a feature.
How about have you
How
made
about-
pants?
Have I made pants? Never sewn pants. I've sewed before. Not well.
All right,
to be fair.
Mr. Scientist, what do you give this movie out of 10?
I give it a solid 7 out of 10.
All right.
Really?
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
I mean, 10 for me is like perfect execution of like cultural relevance and craft at the same time.
Give us 2 examples of 10s.
Parasite's a 10 for me,
Wow.
honestly. From this year to very recently. Another 10 would be, I think The Big Short is a 10 for me as well.
Big Short?
The Big Short. Yeah.
Isn't that the one where you were like, please, not The Big Short? Like, you didn't want to cover that one for some reason.
I did not want to do I've seen The Big Short. I was just going.
You didn't like it?
I mean, it's
Stop trying to make me learn.
Okay.
no. I just like my brain just can't keep up with all the like math. So I'm just like,
That was the whole point of that movie, is it made it distillable in something that could
well,
make
I
sense
kind of
and
got the
wasn't
overall
contained
story.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Riley's IQ is 87.
The Social Network is also a 10 for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
You like Aaron Sorkin?
Oh, I love Aaron Sorkin.
Wow.
I watched Molly's Game on the weekend. His first
Is
time
that one
directing.
good?
Yeah, Molly's Game was excellent.
He directed that, hey?
Yes, he did.
Wow.
Good movie. Not a 10, but a good movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We can't get caught in the weeds here. Riley, what's your movie out of 10?
I gave it an 8.5 out of 10.
That's pretty high.
Yeah. And my slogan is, a dead body is the ultimate tool
Oh,
for learning life lessons.
my slogan's not funny now.
Yeah, whoopsies. Wait, did I steal your thing?
No.
Wait, did you say your slogan?
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry.
So
go
my
ahead.
slogan is a movie that started with a fart joke that is a human reflection of self-loathing.
Whoa, that's deep, dude.
I'm giving this movie, I think, a 7.5.
7.5.
That 0.5 is a bonus for originality.
Oh,
like
yes.
in terms of how much I liked it while watching, probably a 7.
Really?
But I just appreciate it so much. I'm giving it that extra 0.5 for a 7.5.
This always surprises me.
What?
Because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I almost gave it an 8, and then I'm like, no, the other guys are going to say it's better than that. Okay, I'll capitulate with these imaginary people in my head.
I'm so happy to hear that you guys liked it that much, though. That's good.
Oh, I loved it.
Oh, and here's my slogan. Swiss Army Man is a out of 10. In the best way.
A fart joke.
A fart joke.
Yeah,
How
you better
funny.
like fart jokes if you're here.
Oh, yes.
You have to do a fart joke because this is the movie that kind of like makes farts deep.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just deep farts.
What is it? This fart originated in the small intestine, way up in there.
The depth of these farts cannot be estimated.
Guys, if you haven't seen this movie, or it's been a while since it came out in, I think, 2016, Riley here has a synopsis for you. And
That's
we
right.
promise it's not as long as last time.
It's not as long as last time. Also, spoilers, obviously.
Spoilers.
This movie came out in 2016. Go see the movie before
on
you listen
Netflix.
to this. Okay, so when a dead body washes up on his shore, Hank, who is stranded on a deserted island, discovers he can ride it like a jet ski, propelled by the corpse's farts. Hank,
Excuse me?
Yep. Hank and the corpse land back in America, but far from civilization. Hank slowly discovers that the corpse's abilities are manifold. It can be a container for drinkable water, a compass, a weapon, and much more. The corpse also slowly begins to speak, adopting the name Manny. As the pair make their way back to civilization, Manny's childlike and shameless interpretation of life conflicts with what Hank considers socially unacceptable behavior, for example, farts. When the pair is attacked by a bear, Manny manages to move under his own power for the first time, igniting one of his farts from their campfire to scare the bear away. Hank loses consciousness and wakes up to Manny carrying him to the house of Sarah, a woman with whom Hank used to ride the bus and who he secretly loves. Sarah calls the police at the sight of Hank and Manny's once again inanimate corpse, but when the cops ask questions about why Sarah is on Hank's phone, Hank runs away with Manny's body. He is followed to the beach by a group including the cops, Sarah and her family, Hank's father, and a reporter and cameraman. Cornered, Hank lets out a long fart before Manny skims away into the ocean, propelled by his own farts, as he and Hank share one last smile. See, now if I had not seen this movie and I heard that synopsis,
You would be
It's
like,
one of those movies.
what a garbage sounding movie.
Where-
How the heck would I watch that?
In the first 25 minutes, you're just calibrating. You're like, what am I really watching?
that's the best part of this movie.
But before we get into that, we're going to tell you that this show is brought to you by our sponsor, Private Internet Access. PIA helps you hide your true IP address so that you can bypass geo restrictions and censorship. You can connect up to 5 devices at once, and it includes an internet kill switch if your VPN gets disconnected involuntarily. We know how much that sucks. PIA is available for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and even as a goddamn Chrome extension. What is this? Witchcraft. So check them out at
Carcoolpia.
Carpool PIA. I almost said carpool.
Carpoolpia.
Carpoolpia.
If you put it all together.
Hey, so this is an A24 movie.
It is an A24 movie.
A24 is the only, what are they, a studio?
They're a studio.
That I've ever, you see the studio's logo at the beginning of the movie,
Yeah.
and I just know from childhood, I think it was Legendary Pictures to The Matrix and 300, and I was like, I think I like their movies.
A24?
No, Legendary.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just saying that in the last year, I've noticed A24 is responsible for a lot of cool movies,
Yeah.
and I'm starting to wonder, like, what are they? And in the same way that I can get a sense of what an A24 movie is, it seems to be a movie that like takes risks.
Right.
And is interesting. Like,
Yes.
what have they done? Hereditary,
Midsommar,
The Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse, The Death of Dick Long, which is also directed by one of the Daniels. One of them. The Farewell, Uncut Gems, Waves. That's just
Yeah,
this
these
year.
are cool movies.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are these other studios like Legendary? Do they kind of have their own niche as well?
Yeah, I would say Legendary owns the rights for Godzilla and King Kong, so they're kind of like monster.
They do legendary.
Well,
stuff.
and like Legendary's name, they're very much focused on very epic, big scale. Like Pacific Rim is, I believe, a Legendary film as well.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I didn't connect these like studios to certain genres.
Not all of them are that way. I mean, I think Paramount. I don't know that Paramount has a specific niche that I'm
Right.
aware of. Maybe
Well,
I'm
I think
wrong.
the bigger they are, the less niche.
Yeah.
They're just mainstream.
And then obviously
right?
Disney is so focused on tentpole. So like,
Right.
I mean, I think the way they describe it is like they want people to have like an experience, like they have to get their butts in a seat experience.
Right.
So that's why Marvel movies and superhero movies are so big and like, you know.
Hey, I might
still-
have been wrong about Matrix using Legendary. It might have been Village Roadshow.
Village Roadshow.
I'm just going from my memory of the
Antiques Roadshow.
green logo. You know, the green filter on the Matrix?
This Matrix is worth about $3,000. You're a lucky man.
It's a Civil War piece. You can see the patina on the side here.
I definitely got the same feeling from like A24, where I feel like if I see A24, I'm like, okay, it's like a mark of quality.
Yeah.
But I think it is more kind of like a subconscious thing that maybe I've picked up on.
Well, it's just that they're willing to look out for filmmakers that are trying things that no studio
Right.
besides them would make.
Yeah, no kidding. Like this movie.
Jeez Louise,
I love-
it is out there.
I love how this movie, it goes full on, like within the first 5 minutes. Like you open up on this random beach where Paul Dano is going to kill himself, and then
Yep.
he sees a corpse wash up, and you're like, this is already pretty interesting. But within like 3 minutes, he's riding that corpse like a human jet ski, powered by its own farts.
It was such like a brilliant way to start the movie because that intro sequence could almost be its own short film.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of the whole movie kind of came out of that idea.
I think it did.
I have a piece of trivia here. The Daniels, the director of this movie, the two directors. It's directed by two people named Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert.
Starring Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe.
That's a lot of Daniels on one set.
And Paul Dano.
Oh my God.
So I don't know if that counts, but anyways, they pitched Dano on the idea with a movie where the first fart makes you laugh and the last fart makes you cry.
Yeah, I did hear that. And I also heard that, who was it that said this? Radcliffe said that he was watching, like when they filmed that jet ski human fart
The jet ski scene.
There was a boat. All the cast were on a normal boat.
Okay.
And then the jet ski thing was like attached to it. And then so they had various props. They had like a dead body prop and they had a butt that shoots bubbles prop.
Jets.
But there was one part where for close-ups just of Paul Dano, he's riding just like a boogie board. And so Radcliffe was just on the boat watching, right? And he's watching Paul Dano just like celebrate, like pump his fist and just be like fully self-actualized while riding this boogie board. And he said that it was the smallest disparity he ever witnessed between what is intended to be portrayed on the eventual screen and what he was witnessing the actor do in real life.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, wow, Dano is just like really experiencing exactly what the
was
character
not actually acting, just living his life.
Right, he
in that
doesn't need to
moment.
pretend.
Yeah.
The moment that Radcliffe was witnessing was just as beautiful as what would end up being on the screen.
Yeah.
It's such a great, I think the first, I don't think I even saw a trailer for this movie.
That's good.
Before, well, I actually, no, I didn't watch the trailer before I saw the movie, which is very strange.
This is exactly the type of movie you want to walk in with no
For sure.
information.
That's my MO all the time.
Yeah.
But the first like moving image I saw of this was somebody who replied to our tweet asking which movie we should watch, and they posted the GIF of Paul Dano writing Daniel Radcliffe, and he's just
GIF.
like, it's that moment where he kind of like whips the cord to kind of like make it go faster, and he's like, yeah. And I was like, what is this? The weirdness and the absurdity, the surrealness of this movie cannot be overstated, I feel
no,
like.
not at all.
So
I mean, it's hard to imagine a way in which it would, I guess you can imagine a way in which it would get weirder. Like you could put aliens in or something, but like beyond anything that, like going in that
while
direction.
still being cohesive.
Yeah.
It went pretty much all the way
Do
there.
you guys remember the Turn Down for What music video?
I watched
looked this
it.
up.
Yeah, I looked it up
And
after.
the Daniels directed that.
Right.
And so, like, I think part of why this is such an absurd concept and where they come from in their history of their film careers is why this movie is so ridiculous.
Right.
They did a lot of music videos.
Yeah, and they have so much heart in this film, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, music videos were definitely where they started.
I noticed that in the Turn Down for What music video, that video, like this movie, has like an animatronic penis that's under. You can see the print of it behind the pants, like as it dances around.
Oh, but that's the dance or whatever. Like the groove is supposed to have gotten into his pants. Is it actually supposed to be his penis?
It's a it looks like a penis to the extent that I thought, is that the same prop they used in the movie? But I think I do think that they rebuilt it or made a new one.
They really they like to do variations on a theme here, I guess, eh?
Yes. Potty humor.
Moving penises are funny. Let's put that in again.
Well, it's the hook, right? Gets people like interested.
It's a hook?
It's the hook.
What is
Well, they didn't do that until like 25 minutes into this one.
Right.
Maybe more.
They had some restraint.
Let's just talk about what this movie means, though.
Okay. So one of the things I wrote down is that this movie is like a perfect mix between genuine, earnest, heartfelt human moments where you're like feeling stuff and gross out toilet humor, absurdist, surreal comedy type of thing. And I while I was watching it, I was just like so taken aback by the fact that it mixes so well. Like I would not expect it that way. I was laughing out loud in the first scene. But like it's so funny because
he's trying to commit suicide.
yeah,
You're
a
laughing.
minute before that he's like attempting to hang himself.
Yeah.
Which is like so every time
So
you see a
dark.
character do this on film, it's just like, holy wow, this is crazy. Yeah. And then he tries to kill himself once, and then he's like, oh no, there's hope. Oh, and he gives up hope again. And he goes and tries to kill himself again.
Yeah.
And then you're brought like a minute later, as you said, he's riding a corpse like a jet
Across
ski
the ocean.
propelled by his farts.
And I'm glad they did that right at the beginning. Apparently, did you guys see any of those reports that when this film was shown at Sundance that people walked out?
Yeah.
Oh.
People walked out of it in Sundance.
Well, I heard, okay, I could understand how that would happen.
Oh,
Yeah, me
totally.
too.
Because it's like you find out early whether or not this is for you.
Yeah.
But I also
Wow.
heard Radcliffe say that he thought that was just like a media narrative that was kind of spun out. That didn't,
Oh, really?
He said that, I've never been to a film festival like that, but I've been to CES where people are so booked with all the meetings. You're going to watch this film, and then immediately after you're going to go to this office and meet with these people.
Yeah.
And I think that they were just behind schedule, started late, so some people just like had to go. And then
Yeah.
others saw that, and then
Really?
someone tweeted out like people are leaving, and then the media just like jumped on that.
Dang it, because I kind of really like that narrative. That like
Makes
because,
it look-
because I can totally understand like a stuffy film critic,
Who's a little uptight.
you know, would like,
about-
I'm at Sundance. I'm really looking for the next,
Yes.
cinematic achievement, and then like it's basically Fart Jokes the movie,
but deep.
but deep.
Yeah.
It's deep, but maybe you don't
The
get
small
there.
intestine. way up there.
Maybe you don't watch long enough to get there, you know? So I can totally understand people walking out. I also wrote down that this movie is like if Monty Python and Castaway had a baby. 'Cause
Oh.
it's just that absurdist nonsense where it's like, were they doing drugs during the filming of this movie? Not even, never mind writing the script. Like, it's so surreal and absurd. And then there's also that serious element of like, this guy is actually kind of screwed up, and this is a journey of him coming back to and like realizing.
Tell us
something-
about that.
something
Tell us about that. What is this movie about? What does Manny represent? What's going on?
Okay, well, I think that I as I do normally with these movies, I looked all this stuff up, so don't credit me for the deep analysis here. Okay.
So the stuff that you looked up, though, did it align with what you
no,
thought?
everything that I just wrote was all me. But what I'm about to say, in that the movie, I think one of the big themes is sort of like social norms and shame, and whether we should hold ourselves accountable to these kind of like potentially arbitrary rules about how to behave, and value ourselves based on how we measure up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for example, the farts themselves. Because
Right.
Manny's always farting so freely and so powerfully and so usefully. But Hank reveals that he doesn't fart in front of other people.
Right.
Until the very end of the movie, he farts in front of a big group of people proudly.
And that's a moment. That's a moment where he has realized it's showing the audience that he has come through that arc and being like, you know what? I am gonna fart in front of other people.
I don't care what other people think as much.
Yeah. The farts are really kind of the metaphor for the whole thing. I love the scene where he's kind of like, Manny's kind of like, he starts out knowing absolutely nothing. So he's like, what is that? We have to witness the world through the perspective of this like weird loner kind of sad person who was like, he said that he's tried to kill himself, and maybe the implication is that he tried to kill himself on the island, but maybe he tried to kill himself before he got stranded as well. I don't know. So he's this kind of like weird, sad loner person who can't get the girl. And now this is the guy who we're going to have explain what life is like to this naive,
Yeah.
Essentially a child. Did it touch you guys? Did the movie touch you in a place?
Absolutely.
Where?
Stop. I didn't. That came out wrong.
I mean, it's just like Manny is a representation of everything that Hank hates about himself. Or like the opposite of what, like he hates that he's constantly embarrassed in front of everyone in his life. He is not a well-liked person in his opinion of his, and he has a very low opinion of himself as a person. He doesn't think he looks very good. Like the moment when Manny tells him, "Oh, you look beautiful," and he's dressed up as Sarah.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Really? Do I?" And like,
Yeah.
you just feel that like he has no self-confidence.
Right.
Like, not,
he's kind of acting there, but he's also kind of not.
exactly.
Manny kind of brings all of Hank's shame.
Yes.
Like a lot of Hank's shame is wrapped around sexuality, and Manny just like has this boner,
Right.
Which also happens to be a compass. Do you think that
Maybe.
the fact that the boner is the compass that guides them toward like where they end up going? Do you think that has extra symbolism tacked on, or do you think it's just funny?
I mean, I think there's that phrase that people say, "Don't think with your dick."
Yeah.
And the funny part being that they end up his dick is the thing that directs them into something.
I don't think that the movie is necessarily telling people to think with their dick, but I think that the whole movie kind of has this like nihilist sort of like existential tack where it's like, this is the way things are. Like, people do think with their dicks, and sometimes that's okay. You know, like I don't think the movie is telling us to celebrate that and to do that, but it's just saying that, like, acknowledge that this happens. People fart, everybody poops, and that's fine.
And I think they did they worked pretty hard to think about what are all the things in the world when you're sitting in a room with people you don't know super well, or even people you do know super well. What are all the things that would make them feel awkward, and how do we put them into this movie? Well, because like their first conversation about masturbation,
right?
They're like, "Oh, doesn't it makes you feel good? Well, why wouldn't you do that all the time?"
Yeah,
like,
yeah. No, it's great. It's like asking all the questions that a child would ask, and that we have to like explain and be like, "Oh, well, well, there's these rules for things, but I don't know where they come from," and I love the difficulty that he has in explaining things.
Like, and then the awkwardness that Hank stumbles across trying to explain it to him in both a way that he understands, but also a way that Hank considers like PC enough for him to get the point of like, yes, you should feel socially awkward when I actually explain the context of this to you. And then Manny's just like, yeah, whatever. So you think about your mom when you masturbate, right?
Yeah, it's like he's actually trying to impart that same context, and he's almost trying to impart the shame onto Manny.
Right.
But Manny doesn't ever accept it.
And I think that's a brilliant method to explain what Hank's character is. Because I think before, like, this whole process of him teaching Manny about the world is us, like, going through this journey with Manny, but it's also, like, the audience learning who Hank is.
And how he sees the world.
Yeah, and that's why I think I said that earlier, that, like, that's, like, such an interesting journey to go through as we learn about what the world is like through the eyes of this kind of weird loner, sad person.
Yeah.
Who didn't get the girl.
And didn't need the girl in the end.
No,
is how he truly felt.
I read an interview with the Daniels, and they said that a lot of people, when they screened the movie, they were like, "Oh, that's nice. Sarah was into it in the end. Like, he got the girl, sort of." And they were like, no, that's not what we wanted to convey. Like, she is not into it. So they had to reshot a little bit and like recorded a line where she was like, what the fuck? Like, they had to make that line in the end so that the audience would know she's not into this. Like, he does not get the girl, and that's fine. Well, like, he doesn't need to get the girl.
I also think that line represents, if you're someone who has watched this entire movie, but also watched it from surface level, not thinking about why they're doing all of these things, why all these moments are happening.
Right.
You could have the same reaction as her. You're watching Daniel Radcliffe fart away as a motorboat into the ocean, smiling at everyone that he's looking back at, and she's like, "What the fuck?" And I think a lot of people might have that reaction to this movie.
It was kind of world breaking for me though, because I went throughout the movie thinking, "Oh, okay, this is within Hank's psychology. Like, this is just a corpse. The corpse exists, but it's just sitting there, and everything on top of that is within his mind."
Yeah.
So then finally at the end, when there are other witnesses present, and then Manny reanimates and then farts away, and everyone sees that, and they go, "What the fuck?" Yeah. Then, like, wait a second. Was that real then?
No, that's what I love about this movie, is that it's ambiguous.
Well, yeah, it's left.
It makes you...
The whole movie could have been a dream, but they didn't even tell you that, whether that's the case or not. It's just that it's an experience of Hank's self-reflection in a movie, and all these people are part of that.
This is normally something that I think would bug me, as the guy who's like really into world building and stuff, and being like, what are the rules? Like, we just did Spirited Away, and I was frustrated by the fact that they didn't explain how things worked, or whether there was like a coherent kind of universe set of rules and whatnot. And paradoxically, I think this is what I love about this movie, is that it is so ambiguous, because I think the important story here is the journey that Hank and Manny go on, and I feel like the filmmakers are trying to hammer it into you to be like, don't think too much about this.
Yeah, don't worry about the little...
Like, I mean... in almost the same way that they're like, don't worry too much about whether you fart in front of people or whatever. Or don't worry too much about whether, the girl on the bus thinks you're a weirdo. Like, who cares,
Yeah.
Don't
worry
too
about
much.
whether or not you can snap your fingers and make a spark.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start a fire.
Don't feel inadequate because of that. Don't worry too much about this, because the important thing is the journey and what, the fact that we're all here and trying to make each other happy. Because you're right, it totally could have been all in his head. Like from the beginning, that's the question I think that the movie is forcing you to ask. You're like, is this real or not?
I think they make you decide that it's not real right at the beginning because off the bat, there's some gas that comes out of his body as the corpse is lying there, right? And you're like, okay, well, that's conceivable.
Yeah,
there's some amount of volume within your cavernous corpse that could maybe fart.
Yeah.
But then it's just such a volume. It doesn't make any sense. And then in the next scene, when the Swiss Army man develops his second utility, which is the water coming out of his mouth, it's a volume of water that did not drip into the corpse's mouth overnight.
Well, maybe
it's
though.
Limitless.
Maybe. If the water kind of like completely fills up your entire digestive tract.
And then later he's like a machine gun. Like,
Yeah. And
but obviously there are like not, they're magical elements.
They're
or
all
whatever.
magic.
Yeah. But
It's all fake.
But I'm saying that this could exist in a world where this is really happening. Like this is a magical thing that's happening.
well, and again, they're trying
I'm saying, look, you have a movie where magical things happen.
okay. So you're saying they live in a world where, but there's no evidence of that because we don't see any otherworldly things in other parts of the world.
But I'm saying that like at the end of the movie, he farts away and everyone sees it. So that implies that this has been a magical experience that was really happening instead of just being in his head.
I don't know. I think that their decision at the end to have him like fart away and the other people to see it is just like a little, let's throw a final twist on there. Final fuck you to the audience.
Yeah, but I think you have to look. Okay, now I'm coming back to my like legalistic world building thing. Like you have to look at the whole experience as cohesive. Of like, okay, this happened in the movie, so that has ramifications for what we saw earlier. You can't just be like the whole thing in his head, and then let's just throw out the last scene in terms of what that means.
I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah, idiot.
I just don't know if they approached it like that.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying is that you can't think about it. It's like don't think about whether this was actually in his head or real. Like explore the idea, but don't get too hung up on the details of it.
And they want you to focus on the human, like emotional elements of the story. Right?
Yeah,
that's the part. That's why, like it's like you could pick it apart. Like there's little details, like his phone, for example, right at the beginning of the movie, his phone is 10%. By the end of the movie, his phone's at 1%. That's the longest lasting 10% I've ever seen an iPhone
Not to
last.
mention the fact that even if your phone is off, it's dying.
Yeah.
If he's been out there for months or whatever. Like
Like how long has he been on the island? He wouldn't have 10%. Like
Exactly.
Although some of these phones have pretty good standby times.
Did you guys think that this movie in the end was a comedy or tragedy? And I'm using those words like he wins or he loses in the end.
I would say if comedy means he wins, then yeah, it's a comedy.
I don't think it's a tragedy. It's a comedy, yeah. Because like he gets arrested and maybe he's going to be like, I don't know, charged with stalking or whatever, but like what's he guilty of? Just like taking a picture of the girl's
on a bus.
Putting it in his phone.
Like you, I also checked out some analysis after I watched it to see
Analyses.
I only looked at one. Some analysis. And I wanted to see. I had an idea, but I wanted to know if what other people thought aligned with what I thought. And there was a slight difference there. And so the analysis that like you're talking about is he kind of does. He does grow throughout the movie. He farts in front of everybody at the end. He's not ashamed, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it doesn't matter. I'm my own person. I'm going to care less about what other people think. I'm going to be me. So that's a win. But I actually thought throughout the movie that he was on a slightly different journey where he had been kind of shunned from society because he didn't have the tools to act correctly within society. And the Swiss Army Man just kind of represented the reintroduction of those tools slowly. So from the base level, it was like, literally farts. And the next thing was water. And then it gets more and more complex and he's getting more and more sophisticated tools that he can integrate into his own behavior and then reintegrate into society. And so at the end, when they move into her yard, into civilization again, it's like, cool, you're fully equipped. You no longer need Manny. He shuts down, becomes a body again. You're on your own, and you're ready. You're equipped and ready to face the world again. But then he fails at that. He totally screws everything up. Manny has to come back to life, and everyone around him thinks he's a freak. And to me, it was like, oh, this is a tragedy. He loses because he built himself up to reintegrate into society, and he failed at that, and he's still a pariah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's a temporary failure because when he stands up tall and finally, and he's doing the interview or whatever, And that's supposed to be the moment where it's like, okay, he's back. There's still that element of kind of weirdness, and that Sarah's looking at the phone and being like, what? This is so weird, blah, 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 and he's still weird. But from there, we go to a moment of self-actualization where he farts in front of everybody. And that's the note that we end on. So I don't know.
The brown note.
Well, and I think another reason why it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it's a tragedy is that even if he, say, somehow in the storyline went to jail after that moment and like was kind of looked at as a really weird, creepy dude by all the people that he just farted in front of, he himself believes
Right.
in himself and has his own self-confidence. And so if he like got out of jail, you could just live your life with a lot more self-confidence,
Yeah.
which would be a very positive experience longer term.
Right.
Instead of if he came out of that self-loathing still, then your life wouldn't really turn around.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens to you when you're constantly like that, right?
And I think the whole lesson here is that you don't need to be liked by everybody. You don't need to be popular in order to be valuable or to be a self-actualized person. You just need to be comfortable with yourself and, work to make your life better and enjoyable and make other lives better, other people's lives better and enjoyable. So I don't, even if he goes to jail and he's still thought of as a weirdo by everybody, as long as he's happy and he is like, he has accepted reality,
Yeah.
then sweet.
Yeah, I think that probably was that take is the director's intent, probably.
Yeah.
But I don't think that my take is.
You don't like it?
I don't think it's mutually exclusive with the other take. I think they can both kind of exist.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Hey, what do you guys think about the concept of like co-directing, two directors?
Oh.
Like you got the Coen brothers, you got
Yep.
the Russo brothers from
Yeah.
Avengers and stuff.
I was thinking about that too, and I feel like if I was in that situation, I would definitely have like, I would be like, am I the good one? Or are they the
Well,
or is he the
so
good
I
one?
think how, in my experience, listening to, like, I actually went to a talk with the Daniels once, and
Really?
how they seem to describe
They're
it.
like our age, eh?
Yeah, they're not that old. They're like, I think they're like mid-30s. Not
Cool.
they're but early to mid-30s.
we are not we're not mid-30s guys. Come on.
Anyway, well, they're not that old as two very talented people, but I think they just split up the work, and they also are the two in what makes good directors. They're both so open to all ideas, and especially from each other, having worked together for so long. And my friend actually just recently worked with two directors for a short film, and he was saying that they're definitely like they split up the work, but there definitely is a lot of back and forth, and like you can, if you're the cinematographer, which he was, when you approve an idea with one director, but then the other director just hates that idea, and
Yeah.
then you kind of all three have to come together again
Right.
on a new idea. So
Yeah.
there is definitely downsides to co-directing.
Well, I wonder. Depends on the level of professionalism.
Yes.
I would think that someone like the Russo brothers or Coen brothers, they probably hash all those things out kind of more privately. Maybe some roles, the cinematographer is one role where you get to see the back and forth more often. But I would think that like on set in front of most of the crew, it would be one
Yeah.
unified voice.
If it's professional, I think that I was almost going to say that that's a strength
Yeah.
because I feel like, and this is completely unfounded on anything but my own intuition, I feel like this is the type of movie where that could only be made by a duo or a group.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's so weird yet so tight and like focused that I feel like if it was one person kind of like having an unbound creative vision, like maybe you wouldn't get this result. You'd get kind of a more out there, kind of less, a more wonky kind of result.
I feel like it's really nice to in that position have somebody to check in with. Like,
Yeah.
is this too outlandish? Do we go this far with it?
Right.
Is this funny still? Like, is this,
Yeah.
or is this like still hitting the heart? You're focused on the emotion. I'm focused on the funny. Like,
Yeah.
or they kind of go back and forth with those two things.
There's a quote from someone who observed the director who observed the Russo brothers working, and he observed them have this back and forth, and he thought, well, this is just like what every single director goes through when they have your voices in your head competing whether or not a decision is good. It's just they get to externalize that experience and just have it between two people. And in interviews about this movie, I think it was Radcliffe who said it seemed like these two people knew exactly what they wanted.
Right.
And I guess the director said that they hashed all their they disagreed about everything before production. They hashed it all out. By
Right.
the time they got to the set, it was just like one
I
vision.
think it's such a beautiful thing to see two like co-directors or two collaborators like working on something and like finding a unifying vision. like these guys apparently met each other at animation school, I think, or some sort of film school.
Yeah.
And they just like started collaborating since then. If you talked about some of their previous music videos that they've done, like a lot of the visual elements are there and the thematic elements are there. And I think that like we need more. I don't know. I would take a duo with like this kind of like consistency over like a single auteur any day.
Yeah.
Like,
because
Wes Anderson's great, but
but two of them at the same time.
if we clone him,
Wes Anderson's.
Well, and I think people like that are the pinnacle of open collaboration at its best.
Right.
And I think, well, and in a different way, a lot of people attribute the same kind of relationship that, I mean, not in exactly the same way, but it's a similar relationship between like a director and a cinematographer that always work together.
Right.
Like Christopher Nolan worked with Wally Pfister forever because of their tight-knit understanding. And when you work with somebody who just understands you to the level of like you don't actually have to tell them to do something and they just kind of do it, that's what you want. And that's the best kind of, especially in filmmaking, like that's the best kind of relationship that you want.
Well, a lot of the famous duo directors are siblings. You got the Russo brothers, Coen brothers, Wachowskis.
yeah,
Yes.
that's very interesting.
Well, and I know a couple, I know two other pairs of filmmakers in Vancouver. They're twins, two sets of twins.
Oh, really?
That they work together, two cinematographers and two directors.
Oh man.
And it just happens to be a very, I mean, when you're siblings with somebody, you've known them literally your entire life from the moment you were born.
You share a name.
Yeah.
These guys share a name, but they're not related.
They're not related.
Well, I guess they go back far enough.
The Daniels.
From school.
Yeah,
They're learning together as well. So
And that's the other part that makes collaborations like that work is when you learn together at the same level and kind of just come up together and to the point where they're at now, it just works out really well because they.
I want to talk about the music now.
Okay.
Because the music
now, everyone.
Now I would like to talk about the music, but because the music was made by another collaborative duo, Andy Hull and Robert McDowell. So they don't share a name, unfortunately, but they are known as the Manchester Orchestra, and they created this entire score. The whole thing is a cappella plus like sticks.
Percussion.
Yeah,
Like,
there's some percussion, but other than that, the whole thing is a cappella, so it's just voices.
It feels that way.
and it's Paul Dano and Radcliffe's voices,
Paul
right?
Dano.
Really?
And Daniel, yep, they got them in to sing.
I didn't know that.
Paul Dano's in a band.
I actually suspected
Oh.
that.
Yeah.
He seemed like a guitar
Well,
player.
there were. I thought
I suspected the voices kind of sounded like theirs.
the music grabbed me. That was one of the other things that really grabbed me in the beginning too, because Paul Dano's singing in the beginning when he's about to hang himself. He's like singing, and then later when he sees, so he goes to check out the corpse. The corpse is farting, and then he's like, it's just a corpse. I can't revive it. Okay, all right, I'm gonna go kill myself again. And then he sees the corpse starting to kind of motor up, and he's like, and he just like makes some noises with his mouth. He's just like mana mana ba ba da ba da ba or something, and that turns into the music. And it's like they're using a loop pedal to like take the sounds from the film, from the visuals, and kind of like turn that into the soundtrack. And I just thought that was so amazing.
It was cool how they established that early on.
Yeah,
That whatever he's humming or whistling as he
Right.
works, like that gets integrated into kind of the meta, what you're listening
Yeah.
to of the movie.
Oh, it's
Because
so
they did
good.
it throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And it kind of just set your expectation of like whatever I hear is part of his monologue, I guess.
Yeah.
We're just in his world.
And later, oh man, the montage part.
The montages are awesome.
And I'm okay. So at a certain point in this movie, I couldn't really understand what some of them were saying, so I turned on subtitles,
Yeah.
and then I watched the rest of the movie with the subtitles just to make sure that I didn't miss things. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad I did, because I don't know, maybe you guys picked up on this without subtitles, but the part where it's kind of the montage and they're like figuring out a ton of stuff, and the lyrics in the music is just singing what they're doing. Did you pick up on that?
I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm so glad I listened with subtitles then. It was so great. Like, so there's a part where it's like, the track might be called Montage. I'm not sure. The lyrics are like, now we killed a raccoon. We are using your body just like a machine gun. Now we are shooting some fish. And then it's like, are we falling in love? And it's like this huge build-up part, and it's just like describing what they're doing. Like, now we killed a raccoon. Like, that's the part where they actually shoot the head off a raccoon with Manny's like mouth as a gun.
Mouth gun, yeah.
And I was just like, this is so good.
Yeah.
I like felt chills over my body during that montage, because I was just like, this is so, like, it's such a perfect synthesis.
Yeah.
He just loves it.
I love it.
That, my friends, is good directing.
Um,
And like when you can work at a level that has something with that much nuance, and you just when you watch, like I love Swiss Army Man is totally the type of movie, at least to me, that I watched it again, I would totally notice things that I didn't see the first time, and like something like that, like the lyrics of this, I did not notice that at all, but I just enjoyed those montages because they were so well done.
Yeah. Oh, and there's so much, like I said that this kind of felt like a mini music video in the middle of the movie because so many
bus stuff, the bus stuff.
The bus stuff and the bus stuff and the montage, and like earlier when he's like describing, like he's trying to explain like life to him, where it's like, this is what we care about and everybody poops and blah, blah, blah. That whole montage, like all of those feel like kind of these like distinct, just like mini short films within this larger film. And I feel like their experience as music video producers added so much to this, because it really is just like, I don't want to say it's like impressionist, but it's really just, it just like draws you into this reality.
And they have such a handle on making something that's about 2 to 5 minutes long and really holds your attention the whole time.
So that's the scale they work at, and they just made the film just like a series of those modules.
I think all of their filmmaking experience just works into something like a feature film, which is such a big undertaking already.
Right.
But yeah, their music video background clearly influenced a lot of their approach to this film. I think just great.
I love the structural element of that, where it's like, okay, you know, we might get bored by just straight unpunctuated Hank traipsing through the forest carrying a corpse.
Yeah.
So we need them to kind of stop every once in a while and have these little like, separated experiences, and like with the music build up, and we realize something, and then we fight, and then we make up, and we move on, and it's just like.
Not only that, but the camera work and the editing also, you could see the carryover from the music video realm, where because it's music videos are always faster paced, there's usually more cuts. They did like in the boner scene, there's like a really fast and close zoom right into the crotch, like that just unconventional for a Hollywood feature.
No, I love that, because music videos. I love that.
Get as close as they can.
Yeah, music videos are intended to make you feel like, or see the emotion that the song is trying to convey. The fact that they have all of these punctuated little modules of raw emotion, I think just like adds to the movie in a way that I haven't really seen in a ton of other movies, where it's just like, let's just take a break right now and have a montage.
Well, and they're so like visually I love a film like this that is a comedy in at least part of the genre class of the film. That
black comedy.
That is visually like very stunning in a lot of ways. Because like comedies, that a typical comedy that you might assume is like a romantic comedy or something, they're always shot very generically or very bright. And this film has so much nuance in all the parts of like what you're looking at, and yet it's still all those things that they want, the times that they want you to laugh, you still laugh, even though it's done in a way that feels so cinematic and so like not like a standard comedy.
Right.
How much do you think those guys got paid? Like the actors, because the movie was $3 million, that was the budget, and the box office is 5.8, and you think of a name like Paul Dano or Daniel Radcliffe, and you're like, these guys got to be making millions of dollars, right?
Not on a movie like this.
They couldn't have been.
No. Well, a movie like this is for actors like them is totally them caring about their craft.
It's a work of passion.
Yeah, caring about the fact that, I'm not going to make what I would make on Harry Potter on this movie, but that's not the point. I'm here to make something I believe in. And that's how you get actors like that on a movie like this.
I think that's what maybe A24 focuses on a little bit. Like this, you don't make a movie about a farting corpse to sell movie tickets.
No.
You know?
And you're not making like $200 million on a movie like that. They know that, but that's okay. They're there to make movies that people haven't seen before, and movies that will have a lasting impression on people. I mean, and not to say that superhero movies don't have that, but it's just a completely different approach. They're not in it to make $1 billion at the box office. They're in it to make movies that have a lasting history, like movies that are iconic.
Push them as actors as well. It's going to attract a certain type of actor. You see, like Paul Dano kind of comes up again and again in these kind of movies.
Oh, totally. And I mean, think about Daniel Radcliffe. Just from his career perspective, he is at the point now where he's just taking on every role
does these weird
that
movies.
can get him as far away from Harry Potter as it possibly. And like this, I mean, as an actor who is well known, as famous as he is, if someone asks you, "Oh yeah, you want to play a farting corpse that also like has some childlike wonder and will teach this guy about how to love himself. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also not because he's washed up.
No, not at
he's
all.
He's a pro. Like, I was actually so impressed with how he did
Oh
this
my
character.
God.
Like,
his acting was amazing.
how does he get his one eye so small and his other eye so huge?
Apparently that's all him.
It was. I saw him do multiple takes, and
Yeah.
it's like in this take, his eyes are kind of equally sized. But like the way he talked out of the side of his mouth and everything, and distorted his voice, was very good.
This was I heard a lot of people saying this before I saw the movie, and they're like, "Oh, it's my favorite performance by Daniel Radcliffe," and I'm like, "Okay, that doesn't say much for Daniel Radcliffe." Like the one where he's a corpse is your favorite performance, but watching this, I'm like, "Yeah, it is."
Yeah.
He kills it. Like just the voice, like
Yep.
he like makes his voice. First of all, I think in other things where he's done an American accent, I think it's really noticeable. But in this one, with the American accent plus his kind of like I'm a corpse, and it kind of sounds like he's trying to force the air out of his lungs.
Yeah, he said that was part of his ideation.
Yeah.
Because in the first scenes where he does speak, it is mechanical. Like,
Right.
Hank is pushing on his torso to force the air out. So that is part of the
He, like-
basis of the voice.
He'll like fall over, and his head is just like resting on the ground. He's looking at something. He's like, "What am I looking at?"
Can you? Hey, Hank. Can you push me off this window?
Yeah. Hank, can you put my head back there? Thanks.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good impression. That kind of reminds me. Do you remember the actor? I think it's Benicio del Toro in the original Sin City playing the cop Rafferty who gets almost decapitated, and he's kind of talking to the character Dwight, who is Clive Owen, in the back of a car, and he's kind of talking to him from beyond the grave, like it's paranormal. And he speaks, and then when the car goes around a corner or something, his head tilts back,
Oh, right.
which makes the wound open. And so he's talking like this and that. He loses
yeah.
for a second, and then it comes back as the wound closes.
Man, it's been a long time since I saw Sin City, but as you described that, I was like, oh yeah, that is a really cool moment. It was like, and I'm back. Yeah.
I love that.
He killed this performance, and I did not expect it at all. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, it must be so boring to play a corpse. No. But just like his control. Yeah. Apparently he can keep his eyes open for like a ridiculously long amount of time.
The physicality, I can't think of a role that I know that he's done that would be more physically demanding than this one.
Well, apparently he did one, I think it's called Equus.
Equus?
It's like a Broadway show where he's just like naked the whole time.
Oh, I remember that.
dang.
He like rode on a horse naked or something.
That was like one of his, or maybe he's not naked the whole time. I don't know. The only thing I remember about reading about that is that he's naked.
Yeah.
But that was like one of the first things he did after Harry Potter.
Really?
And so I feel like he was just kind of like, all right, I'm done with Harry Potter. Now I'm going to get weird.
I don't know.
But it's funny because
I hear what you're saying, but I wonder if he would take offense to certain characterizations where it's like, oh, you just want to really distance yourself and you want to get back in the headlines, or you want to make a splash and say, I'm not Harry Potter, guys, I'm so much more.
Yeah.
And you just do these ridiculous roles that you wouldn't otherwise take. I don't believe that's true about him.
Well, I don't know. I feel like that's valid.
Also,
I'm not trying to knock him for doing that.
I think he also just loves absurdity. Like he has another movie that's coming out soon called Guns Akimbo, where he just has
he's got guns like surgically attached to his hands. Yeah.
What would he have done if he wasn't ever cast in Harry Potter? Because at a certain point, like, he's a child. He gets cast in Harry Potter. He is probably contractually obligated to be in Harry Potter for some certain amount of time. During that time, he gets ideas of his own. He forms his identity. He learns, who am I and what do I like?
Right.
He grew up on a movie set.
But then it just so happens that when he became an adult, he's like, I actually like doing the type of acting that is not at all like I got roped into as a kid.
Yeah.
If he had never been in Harry Potter, his career might have been like this the whole time.
Which is so funny because I didn't like him in Harry Potter. Like I was bored by Daniel Radcliffe in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Especially by the last film, you're just like, oh, have
I'm definitely
some
not
character.
a huge fan of those movies.
He's just like, I have to defeat Voldemort.
Just grinning his teeth and pointing a wand at the screen while wind blows in his eyes.
Yeah, like it's just a nothing
Actually,
character.
This is a side question, but who do you think out of Harry Potter came out with the most? Maybe okay. It's weird to compare fully, but who do you think came out with the most fulfilling career? Like someone like there's always.
Are you talking about the kids?
Yeah, there's friends
Emma
or
Watson's the hottest, obviously.
Emma Watson's the biggest, for sure, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess she's probably had the most commercial success overall.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Plus, she got to go to the UN and speak and stuff.
Yeah,
She's
a
like
big deal.
she's like a feminist figure.
But she's definitely done less like respectable movie roles since.
She was in Little Women.
I didn't see that one, but that might be the most respectable one, respectable role that she's had. I think she's like mostly just kind of been like black characters. Like I
what
can't
was
think
she
of
in?
I can't think of a respectable.
Perks of Being a Wallflower?
Okay, yeah, she was good.
Excellent
That was
movie.
right after Harry Potter,
It was.
and then since then,
I didn't
'cause, like,
care for
Daniel
the Bling
Radcliffe,
Ring.
he did Horns, he did Imperium, where he played that like FBI agent going undercover with Nazi people.
Mm-hmm.
He did the Naked Broadway Show. There's lots of stuff.
What did Ron Weasley
Guns
do?
I actually don't know.
Poor Ron Weasley. What's his real name?
What's his real name?
Rupert Grint.
He's the same in real life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel bad for him because I think he's gotten kind of a bad luck with
Got the
movies.
short end of the grint.
One thing that we haven't really brought up yet is the like constructions in this movie, like the little arts and crafts.
And they built a little stick bus.
Yeah.
And there was like that moment where he like he walks through. They were recreating the moment where he first saw Sarah, and him, Paul Dano as Sarah walks into the bus. He's like fully backlit, like beautiful, like.
And apparently
heavenly
Hank,
looking.
Apparently Hank is in multiple places at once. I think this is one of the things that definitely contributed to me, like beyond there being this like magically animated corpse. This is one of the things that contributed to thinking that it's like all in his head, is the fact that they made all of these super elaborate constructions out of like forest detritus and trash. And trash, all sorts of stuff, and like I tried to look it up because they're the first thing that you see in the movie is these like little boats that Hank sends out to try and get help. You see that, and then they kind of are throughout the movie. So I'm like, is there some like artist that's responsible for these? Like, am I gonna find the guy who made or girl who made them, and they're like in a gallery somewhere?
I mean,
but like I looked it up, and apparently they just had some members of the crew that were just this was their job.
Yeah, the production designer.
Yeah.
That's entirely what the production designer's job is.
But like they're so elaborate.
Yeah, I know. Because production designers are designers of the aesthetic of a film.
Right, but
Man, production design is huge though. Like think about Blade Runner 2049, where there's a set called the Trash Mesa.
Yeah,
that's when he goes out of town and he lands. It's like a dump, and there's a bunch of like rusty. They're standing on like a mountain of rusty car parts.
Yeah,
it's like someone had to.
Well, and you think about the
activate all
house
that.
in Parasite. That's production design. That's amazing production. design.
Sure. But I think I thought that there had to be some sort of like singular artist around it. Because
I think a lot of the time comes from like they'll look at reference of like old art or like art or statues that they've seen that like then they take one element of that and then one element of this painting and then one element of this photograph that they saw and then they make the thing that they need.
So apparently this is what's interesting because like you assume that they like must have made all of these stuff before they started filming or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But apparently they had a team on set. And they did make some like prototypes before to be like, oh, it'll look kind of like this.
Yeah.
But the stuff that they made beforehand was like too put together.
Right.
So they had a team of people with just like a table on set when they were out there in the forest, and they're like, okay, we need a house, or we need like, you know, a little boat. So then the people would just go into the forest, get a bunch of twigs and stuff, and they had like trash and stuff there, and they would make it on set in like 10 minutes.
I love this.
And then they just use it because they're
great.
like, it can't look like it's too refined. Like it has to look like he made it in like an hour.
Yeah,
And that's
they
great
have the
art.
same process that the character does.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And apparently they shot this in 22 days.
Yeah. That's a lot.
They're just out there in the forest for 22 days.
Well, and all the montage stuff, that's a lot of work for 22 days. but
I
it's
know.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
Well, that's what I mean,
No,
though,
well,
too.
they would have done that.
Sorry?
What do you mean the montage stuff?
Well, like...
You mean all the constituent parts of that montage? Yeah, they had to
montages are
film each of
really
those?
hard to shoot because
Yeah.
you think about how varied each thing can be or is a lot of the time in a montage, and that's one shot of maybe 60 or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming that, 60
Sequential
different
shots.
shots. I thought you meant like takes.
No.
Like
Yeah,
they probably
because-
didn't have time to do 60 takes.
No.
That's the whole thing with the montage. You're going through a lot of content in a short amount of time, but it still takes just as much time to set up those shots.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other thing is that's why actors like Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano will do movies like this, but that's the schedule that happens because they're really busy actors that are big actors, And if you want them for a small film that they're not making any money on, which is they're doing it because they don't care about the fact that they're not making a bunch of money on it, but
Right.
that also they have a limited amount of time. So you shoot something like this in 22 days. Like that's not a lot of time at all.
The Daniels also said that they really liked doing this film because they knew that it was something that like other people wouldn't want them to do or wouldn't like, maybe like
Yeah.
the big studios or something.
Yeah.
This was actually part of the Sundance filmmaker program or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they had some funding from Sundance and
Yeah.
support.
Oh, it's like an incubator almost.
Yeah,
like an
Sundance
accelerator.
has, a couple of the film festivals have stuff like that.
And they
Oh.
said that like one of the reasons that one of the things that kind of kept them going with it was the fact that they're like, yeah, Robert Redford doesn't even know what kind of crazy shit we're doing like in the Sundance like incubator program or whatever. And I feel like we definitely get that from this movie. And I wonder if the fact that it was so successful and so kind of like universally loved, are we going to see something, can they live up to this with their later work?
Well, there have been subsequent movies like The Death of Long
Long.
Dick. Oh, Dick Long.
Yep.
For that movie, the reviews aren't quite as good as this one.
It was only one of the Daniels that did that one.
That's right. Yeah, you need both.
So this is kind of like maybe the movie that
the pinnacle of the Daniels.
Yeah, I don't want to say it.
No, I don't want to say it either.
It's so sad.
yeah.
Because like you give people the support because you're like, wow, that movie was really good. Now we're gonna make you big filmmakers.
Yeah.
Oopsies.
Yeah, well, if their subsequent projects have fewer Dans involved, obviously.
No Daniel Radcliffe. No Daniel Kwan.
yeah. We need more Dans.
Yeah.
Dano.
One last thing I want to touch on before we wrap this up is what did you guys think about Manny and Hank's relationship?
Yeah, are you talking specifically about
Like the moment where they're sitting at the little stick house and they almost have
Yeah,
like
there's,
a
like,
moment where
romantic.
they almost kiss each other, and then when the subsequent scene after that when he's like crawling a pipe and Manny's like egging him on like, what? I think I'm feeling fear.
and then they break through the pipe and go underwater, and then they kiss underwater, but it's also like a breath of life.
Yeah,
I think
because
Hank gets air out of
right.
Manny.
Turns out that's another function of Manny,
Yeah.
that he can be a source of water and
Well, he already
air.
you knew he had air. It just came out of his butt usually. They can't
Well,
have
yeah, sure, I
Paul
guess so.
Dano kissing
Yeah.
his butt. Come on.
Yeah, I liked how, because obviously I think if they just turned this into like a straight up love story,
Yeah.
it would be kind of lame. So I kind of like how up in the air they left it, where they're like, hey, you don't have to put a label on this. Like, okay, yeah, we're feeling for each other. In the song, in the soundtrack, as I said, is like, now we're doing this, are we falling in love? And it's like, that all happens within the context of like Hank pretending to be Sarah because Manny is like, he thinks he loves Sarah or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's like falling in love with Hank pretending to be Sarah. But I like how ambiguous it is because it kind of is it's the same thing with the whole movie where it's just like, don't think too hard about this.
Yeah.
Just have a good time.
Just enjoy it.
Just
Wow.
live your life.
Yeah.
It's a couple of degrees of separation away from homoeroticism because not only do they have the layer that you're describing where he's ostensibly falling in love with this woman, but also he's really it's about self-love.
Right.
He's just starting to
Yeah.
love himself again so that he can reintegrate into society.
Right. His relationship with Manny is really kind of him accepting himself.
It
and
is a
like,
journey of self-love.
Right.
Also, I love that his name is Manny.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like
so great.
he is corpse. He is man.
Yeah.
That is it.
He
He's
is
an
man.
empty shell.
Yeah.
He's
Man.
whatever you put into him, including a missile that you could launch from
Which
his
is
mouth.
entirely
love
what
that.
self-love is. It's
Yeah.
whatever you put into
It's
it.
putting
Putting the
things
effort.
down your throat so you can eject them out and blow the heads off squirrels.
And raccoons.
Or raccoons,
And
sorry.
try to fail to kill a bear.
Man, what a crazy, crazy trip. Anyways,
Very
Well, thanks a lot,
enjoyable.
Brandon, for helping us out on this episode. And guys, if you like Brandon, you can find him on Twitter at Brandon Lee.
Brandon_Y_Lee.
that's confusing.
Yes, it is.
Brandon
There's two- think about
_Y.
how many Brandon Lees there are in the world. You
don't
Google
know.
my name and they're not that.
Yeah,
haven't
you get
looked it up.
Bruce. You get the
You're
Crow.
Bruce Lee's son.
The Crow comes up.
I have the
Guys, if you
same
want to
name.
see us cover the Crow,
Yeah, come back, Brandon. I'm sure you will.
This was fun. Thanks, guys.
kill David. Hey guys,
Anyways.
follow us on Twitter at Carpool Critics and hit us up with suggestions you have for the movies that we should cover. And we promise if you win the poll, we will consider that.
This is a democracy.
We're sorry again for not honoring the poll.
Yeah.
Also, we want to just hear your questions. Maybe we'll do like a mailbag episode, like a Q&A. So just give us your random questions. Make them as personable and personal as possible.
All of those. All right. Well, love you so much.
See you
Thanks,
later.
guys. Bye.
Bye.